She was never the villain. She was the first victim. Every myth you've heard about Aphrodite paints the same picture. A vain goddess who started wars over beauty and destroyed lives out of jealousy. But what if she was forced into a marriage she never wanted, punished for a power she never asked for, and stripped of an identity older than Greece itself? This is the story they never told you. Before Zeus, before the Olympians, before the gods you know even existed. Kronos, the youngest Titan, took an adamantine sickle and struck down his own father, Uranos. From that wound, something fell into the ocean. The sea churned. White foam gathered, thickened, and took shape. A figure emerged, fully grown, impossibly beautiful, stepping onto the water as if the ocean itself had decided to give her form. No mother, no cradle, no cry. This is how Hesiod tells it in the Theogony. Aphrodite was born from the most violent act in all of mythology, and here is what most people miss. If she was born from the fall of Uranos, she existed before Kronos had his own children, before Hestia, before Hades, before Zeus. She is the oldest Olympian. The goddess most people dismiss as shallow and vain is actually the most ancient being on Olympus. But centuries later, Homer rewrote her as just another daughter of Zeus. Ordinary, manageable. Because a goddess born from the overthrow of the heavens is terrifying. A daughter of Zeus can be controlled. It was the first time her story was rewritten. It would not be the last. So what did the gods do with the most powerful being on Olympus? They gave her away. Zeus married her off to Hephaestus, the god of the forge, the ugliest god on Olympus. Not because he would make her happy, because no one would be jealous. A political calculation disguised as a marriage. In one version, Hephaestus had been thrown from Olympus by his own mother, Hera, for being too ugly. He survived and years later trapped Hera in a golden throne. His one condition for releasing her, he wanted Aphrodite as his wife. Hera's freedom for Aphrodite's. One goddess released from a golden trap, another handed into one. Like anything caged long enough, she reached for the only opening she could find. She found comfort in the arms of Ares, the god of war. Every myth calls this a betrayal, but she was given to a husband she never chose. An affair or an escape? When Helios, the sun god, caught them, he reported it to Hephaestus. The smith god crafted a net of invisible golden chains and draped it over the bed. When Ares came, the net fell. They were trapped. Then Hephaestus called every god on Olympus to come look. They gathered around and laughed. Every god laughed at her. Hermes admitted he would trade places with Ares, chains and all. They mocked her body and coveted it in the same breath. The goddesses, not a single one showed up. Hephaestus demanded compensation. Speaking about Aphrodite, the way you speak about a product that didn't perform as promised. Not a wife, a transaction. She fled to Cyprus. The male gods who laughed at her were the same ones who chased nymphs through forests without consequence. Zeus alone had more affairs than any poet could count, but no one ever trapped him in a golden net. The rules were different for her. They were always different for her. But here is where the story takes its cruelest turn. Every myth about Aphrodite's children calls her a cruel mother, but in every case someone else lit the match. When she became pregnant by Dionysus, Hera cursed the baby inside her womb. The child Priapus was born so different that even a goddess couldn't bear to look. History remembers Aphrodite as the monster, but it was Hera who harmed that child. Then came Adonis, born from tragedy, abandoned by everyone. Aphrodite found him, saved him, and entrusted him to Persephone for safekeeping. But Persephone refused to give him back. Zeus had to divide his time between them. Adonis chose Aphrodite. She loved him. She warned him to stay away from wild animals. He didn't listen. A wild boar killed him. She held him while he died. From his blood, anemone flowers bloomed. Fragile, short-lived, gone with the first wind. Just like everything she was ever allowed to keep. Then Hippolytus, the son of Theseus who publicly declared Aphrodite's domain was worthless. In Greek mythology, defying a god always ends in destruction. Prometheus was chained to a rock. Arachne became a spider. Aphrodite struck back through his stepmother Phaedra, and 3 lives were destroyed. Cruel? Yes, but no different from what Zeus or Athena had done 100 times before. But the greatest injustice wasn't done by the gods. It was done by history. Because the goddess you call Aphrodite, that wasn't even her real name. Long before Greece existed, people on Cyprus were worshipping a goddess of fertility 5,000 years ago. Small stone figures dating to 3000 BC. Around 2000 BC, traders from the Near East brought Ishtar and Astarte, goddesses of love and war, not just love, not just beauty. They commanded armies and blessed harvests in the same breath. Then the Greeks arrived around the 12th century BC. They did what conquerors always do, kept what was useful, erased what was threatening. The love they kept, the war they erased. They even rewrote her name, claiming Aphrodite came from Greek aphros, sea foam. Modern scholars believe it was borrowed from a Semitic language. They took a goddess who was equal parts warrior and lover and cut her in half. But they couldn't fully erase her. In Sparta, she was still worshipped as Aphrodite Aurea, the warrior wearing armor. In the Iliad, when her son Aeneas falls in battle, she walks onto the battlefield at Troy and lifts him with her own hands. A mortal drives a spear into her wrist. She bleeds, and Zeus tells her, "War is not your domain." That wasn't comfort. That was a command. Even the planet tells the truth. Thousands of years before the Greeks named it after Aphrodite, Inanna was already identified with the same celestial body in Mesopotamia. Inanna, Ishtar, Astarte, Aphrodite, Venus. The name changed, but it was always her. She was about power, the kind that terrified everyone around her. And that is exactly why they rewrote her story. A goddess you can laugh at is a goddess you can control. So they took her sword and left her only a mirror. They took her battlefield and gave her only a bedroom. And then they called her shallow for living in the cage they built. She was never the villain. She was the first victim. And she was the survivor of every age that tried to erase her. This is the story they never told you. And now you know why.